Hello, and thank you ever so much for inviting me to be part of this presentation and panel discussion around the applications of VR in healthcare. My name is Sarah Ticho. I wear quite a few hats in the immersive arts and healthcare world. So first of all, I'm the founder of Hatsumi. We're developing a VR tool that enables patients to illustrate onto a body where they feel both emotional and physical pain, and how this can improve patient-doctor communication, create new forms of research and understanding, and also work as a public engagement tool to enable us to visualize these invisible experiences and create new opportunities for understanding around these forms of conditions. I'm also the producer in Explore Deep, a breath-controlled virtual reality experience that was developed by a collaboration between artists Owen Harris and Nikki Smith with the Games for Emotional and Mental Health Lab. So we've been looking at developing research the last 5 years into its applications in anxiety management, as well as how it can support children with complex needs and its opportunity to reduce disruptive classroom behaviour. And we're now doing research into its applications in PTSD, as well as COPD, and some various other acronyms as well, and ultimately bring it to things like the Oculus Quest as well, and start to make VR more accessible to a wider market in how it can improve health and well-being as well. So I'm sure everyone here is already fairly familiar with lots of the different applications of VR in healthcare, how it can be applied in mental health, obviously from anxiety and management and developing mindfulness skills like we do with Explore Deep, to exposure therapy, how it's used in physiotherapy and rehabilitation, diagnostics, data and metrics. It's obviously incredibly valuable. I'm very interested in its opportunities in pain management and pain communication, as well as obviously its applications in clinical skills training as well. So over the last few years, I've been working with Immerse UK and working them as their healthcare lead, and really starting to work with them to think about, these sort of opportunities and barriers within the immersive healthcare industry, and some of the unique challenges that we face. And I think ultimately for VR and healthcare to be a success, then we really need to dissolve the barriers and these silos between the artists and creative industries, research and academia, and enable us to work with more startups and businesses, and ultimately to disseminate this to healthcare markets as well. So since 2018, I've been working with Immerse UK. We've run two conferences now in collaboration with the Institution of Engineering and Technology. We've also run two roundtable discussions, inviting people across the industry to talk about the opportunities and barriers for VR for mental health. And so over the next few minutes as well, then I'll talk about some of those findings. And finally, been running a touring series with Barclays Eagle Labs health tech team as well, where we've been running events from the applications of VR in pain management to femtech, pediatrics, art therapy, and actually one around end of life and grief as well. And in fact, in my spare time, I'm training to be an end of life doula, so a non-medical support to people that are going through the end of life process. And we've also developed a research report, an initial research report, with more to come hopefully, about the opportunities for immersive healthcare as well. And so some of the findings that we've come across along the way include opportunities for some of the barriers, in fact, is challenges around infrastructure. How do we start to create best practice and standardize how these experiences are developed and distributed? How do we create some sort of like regulation and create standards around how data is managed, who is using that data? How do we manage working with organizations like Facebook that have a fairly tricky history in data privacy, to say the least? And how do we sort of navigate these connections between these hardware and software companies? How do we work with companies like Unity and Unreal and create more of these sort of opportunities for collaboration and support this greater infrastructure? I think there are a lot of challenges around cross-disciplinary collaboration. How do we expand the evidence base and create opportunities to fill this skills gap when there are lots of universities and healthcare organisations that want to develop the experience but don't necessarily have the skills? Or how do artists and creatives find those academics and healthcare professionals and patients to work with? And I think, through my own experience, I found that there's a real challenge as well, even with things like IP management. If you do want to work with a university, how do you find a way that ultimately everyone benefits, but that you can still sort of retain the IP and find a way of being able to commercialize it as well? Because I think when going for investment, these are lots of questions that investors do ask as well. And then finally, like, how do we manage the adoption and distribution as well? How do we crack something like the NHS, which I think someone beautifully articulated once as the NHS people imagine is a whale, but it's actually a school of fish. And if you're constantly trying to work with and get into different trusts, is quite a challenge, when actually there is a need for some sort of all-encompassing VR strategy. And because this is such a challenge, there are lots of people that ultimately pivot to bringing their offerings, if it is more of a well-being based experience, to workplace environments where it's potentially more lucrative, or do things like go direct to consumer if it is something that is possible to do. But obviously navigating what is a well-being device compared to an intervention can be a real challenge as well. And through conversations with a variety of startups as well, many do just go abroad because there is that opportunity for buy-in from other countries when it's been such a challenge here. And it's such a shame to think that here in the UK that we're losing some of those skills as well. And opportunities to use it in the country that it was made, and also bring in people that are doing exciting things further afield as well. Finally, I think opportunities for funding and investment. I'm not sure why I put this in the distribution category, but we'll just roll with it. But yeah, finding more ways to fund more of these interdisciplinary collaborations and make it easier for people to be invested in and supported as well. And so we've been working really hard to find ways of being able to overcome this in Immerse UK, but also further afield as well. So like I mentioned, then we delivered the Promise of Immersive Healthcare report, but there are fantastic organisations like Games for Change that have done their big XR for Social Impact report. And there are so many others that I just won't be able to fit into this time frame. Again, Unity for Humanity are doing some great work to support the XR for broadly social impact space. But there are consortiums that are being developed that can create more opportunities for those conversations and collaborations. I really recommend looking to the International VR Healthcare Association and the XR Safety Initiative that have a Medical XR Council as well. And ultimately that there are starting to be shifts in this substantial investment and buy-in from healthcare as well. I know that it is happening all over the world, but already here in the UK, then Health Education England have invested significantly into their immersive training programme. There are also lots of opportunities for cross-disciplinary collaboration, and as part of some of these roundtable discussions, we ended up running an innovation sprint with in-game up at Abertay University last year, where we brought together psychologists and healthcare professionals from the NHS with video games designers and academics and some of the original developers behind Grand Theft Auto that could actually bring their sort of skills and knowledge from the gaming and entertainment industry and think about how this could be applied to some of the challenge that we're overcoming. Again, with Frontiers in Virtual Reality and a series of publications, there is this growing healthcare base, and just being able to connect with people online as well. Things like Facebook groups have been an incredible resource. So things like VR Doctors, for example, has been really, really valuable in enabling people to share and connect. And finally, there are some other early conversations with the NHS as well around how to start to implement on a wider scale VR for healthcare as well. And with projects like Game Change that's been developed by Oxford VR and a series of partners, then there is clearly potential here in the UK for it to expand more and more support to occur. And I think there are opportunities to reach different markets. I think that it's great that we can do stuff with workplace well-being and have different opportunities to reach people that need that support. And if there are opportunities to go direct to consumer, the fact that Unity for Humanity is supporting in the development of this, and perhaps Oculus may be more willing to distribute well-being experiences if they overcome some of their own challenges still that make us nervous about working with them. And there is scope to go further afield as well, and bring this work to international consumers as well. And I think specifically the US market is really investing quite significantly in VR in healthcare, and there are more and more funding and investment opportunities developing as well. And so a while ago, I did do some research with Nesta, in fact, about this kind of these sort of challenges and opportunities, and the fact that there are people from all these different industries that are developing things, from doctors that have very clear plans of what they want to develop for medical training and so forth, to academics and researchers, but also from the creative industries as well. I think there's lots of creatives that almost accidentally discover that what they've created is therapeutic, or are just really interested in getting into this space, and how do they do that? And so as a result of this consultancy that I did with them, then Nesta ended up working with Story Futures Academy, that based at Royal Holloway University, to create their immersive mental health fellowships. They supported 4 different projects that were led by SMEs and artists to create VR interventions for mental health. And so they were paired with lecturers at the university to develop a prototype. They were able to retain their IP as well, and have hopefully paved the way for more development of those prototypes in the future as well. And so ultimately, this is a huge and complex area where there are so many different players, from, the hardware and software companies to independent artists and creatives, to all the different healthcare organizations and funders and investors and startups. And I think we need to find a way of being able to have these conversations with each other, and do start to think about, how do we standardize and distribute as well. One final little bit as well is that I think, with COVID, it's been really interesting because there's been more opportunities for people to gather online as well. And myself and a series of collaborators earlier this year ran a conference in virtual reality, when our conference about VR and healthcare over for virtual medicine was cancelled. And it was great because it was so much more inclusive for those people that do have headsets. But I guess through things like AltSpace, you can do it online as well. But we actually, had more participation from, patients in palliative care that couldn't have been there in person, to people all around the world that were able to gather as well. And the image in the top left is a bit clipped, but that's actually an image of the coronavirus structure that was being shot at by lasers, and we had a Bonnie Tyler dance party in there at the end of the conference as well, which is not usually how I end conferences, but very fun indeed. And again, more programs like the Women in XR Fund that ran a mental health and well-being roundtable discussion with a series of industry and academic leaders as well. And so it's been really great to actually find ways of connecting more with people in the last few months as well. And so in summary, I guess, I've talked a lot about the, challenges and opportunities for distribution, adoption, collaboration, infrastructure, strategic investment. And I kind of left off the 2 things that I feel like are also most important, in my opinion as well, which is educating people about these opportunities, starting to go to video games conferences and be like, hey, did you know that VR can be used in pain management and mental health? And again, bringing games developers to healthcare conferences and saying, did you know that we can apply games in this as well? I think we also need to think about accessibility, how do we make this technology more accessible to a wider bunch of people, but also how we think about how it can be more accessible for people that are physically and neurodiverse. And also just create more diversity as well. If we're going to create experiences for hopefully a global population, we need to have more women, we need to have more people of colour, we need to have more people with a variety of forms of lived experience experience that are deeply involved in the development process as well. And I think that we do ultimately need some sort of centralized strategy for the application of XR in healthcare. And so I'm really excited about what's going on in the UK, and I'm really excited to see what is happening next as well. And I look forward to hearing everybody else's thoughts and discussing this more in the panel discussion. So thank you very much.